Okay guys, welcome back to another episode of Building Meditation App with React Native, Firebase and OpenAI API. So in this episode, I want to go through something that we haven't done last time, which is ES-Lint. This setup that we are going to do is basically make your job easier to just make sure that your code is up to standard that we define in the ES-Lint config. And also it's automatically style your code. So you don't need to just, in terms of indentation and in terms of making your code nicer, you just also use Prettier, which is another node module that basically helps you to make everything looks pretty. So we start with what you need to do is basically you need to initialize the ES-Lint. There is a very simple setup and we need to add a couple of other node modules after that for it to work properly. What we can do to initiate it is npx ES-Lint / init. This initialize ES-Lint. I'll make this bigger. Okay, so you need to go through these setup questions that it's going to ask you. Basically, how would you like to use ES-Lint? So would you like to check syntax? What we want to do is check syntax, find problems, and then force code style. We want just it styles for us as well. So you select this one. Yeah, module. It says like what type of modules does your project use? Import, export. We are using import, export. We don't use require exports. So you use this. If you're using server side, you can use this common.js require, but anyway, we are using import export. We are using it in React. We are using TypeScript. If you're not using TypeScript, you can just say no. We are using TypeScript. Where does your code run? If you're using server side, you can use a node. For us, we use browser. And how would you like to define a style for your project? We can say use a popular style guide, something that everyone uses, and we go with the standard ES-Lint config is standard with TypeScript. And of course, like it just asks you what kind of format do you want this ES-Lint config. It can be .js or JSON. I use JSON. You can use JS, but I usually have all the setup for the JSON file, so I use JSON. And now it says all these plugins, if you see configure standard, TypeScript, all these plugins mentioned here, it wants to install these. Do you want to install? Yeah, you need to, because if you want to use it, you need to. And if you're using npm, yarn or pnpm, I'm using npm now. So here we go. It will start to install them all. That's it, all installed. I'm using Node 18. If you see Node-V, I'm using Node 18.12.1. And Node 18, something that it does, it just check all the packages and try to find the best peer dependencies. And sometimes it fails your npm because of one of the packages you installed is not the correct peer dependency, which in many cases is okay. You can just ignore that by adding npm install -- force, which at some point we need to do that. But you can also turn it off, but it's good for sometimes I could just notify you what peer dependencies are not really matched together. But anyway, what else do we need? At the moment, if I go to my package.json, you can see on my dev dependencies, it installs everything on the dev dependency because that's where you need them. It installs these basically. So I had this Babel call, Firebase and TypeScript. It installs these. What I'm going to do is there is this .ES-Lint rc.json file that it creates for us. It's usually defined the normal, very basic stuff that you need for all the rules on ES-Lint. So we're going to add to this because that you can add it in extends, you can add more plugins and you can add more rules, things that you think it's important in your code standard, in the company you're working for. So anyway, I have my favorites that I'm going to add here. I add the repository here in the description. So you can go there and copy paste this. What I'm going to add here. So this is my favorite settings, basically. It extends to Airbnb. Airbnb, as you guys know, use React Native, and they develop their own standards. We are going to extend it to Airbnb, and we need to actually install these. I'll add what they need to install. In the description, I will add like the commands, the npm install commands for installing all these dependency we need. We are using the file names, and we can just add a package for this, a plugin for the file names that we importing, exporting. We can just have some rules around that, and the React Native plugin, ES-Lint plugin, basically. So what you need to install is npm install. You say the install --save -dev. That's, you want to install it on your dev dependency, not on your main dependencies anyway. So these are the additional things that you need to install for your ES-Lint to work, and it does automatic styling for you, is basically these. Yeah, prettier config, the parser, ES-Lint parser, ES-Lint config Airbnb, ES-Lint config Airbnb TypeScript, file name, the plugin for file name, plugin for import, and plugin React Native. So we just go on and install this. I think we're going to need the force because some of these peer dependencies are going to be different. Yeah, so if we just put --force at the end of it. Okay, so it installed everything we need. We also need another file here, which we'll call .prettierrc.js. This is the prettier configurations. This is in the repository. You can just search for this in the repository and you just copy paste this. I'll save this. I'll save this other one. So we extend it to this Airbnb stuff that we add, Airbnb TypeScript and Airbnb hooks, and also we have this recommended stuff. Each of them will come as a warning in your ES code, and then you can just search for it and see how you can change the variables that needs, basically. What you're gonna do is that you run this npx ES-Lint, which is like all. And if there's any error, it will show you that there is some error, something missing. These are the errors that actually my code has in terms of like being like quotations, pretty, the indentations, all that's fine. But there is sometimes if there is no plugin installed, you don't see all of these. You don't see these red stuff. You see just like an error that says some of the plugin is missing. Then you need to install that. But for us, everything that installed, it was enough. And it starts to work. So if I go now to the code, let's see, use auth, and if like my indentations are not correct and I have messed up indentations, I set up a shortcut with basically command and M, and it's just fix all these for me. So if everything like is messed up, so just I press command M on how I did that. So you need to go to your setting if you need a shortcut that every time you write a code and immediately you can do it on save, but sometimes it's annoying. So you can just go to the settings. Where was my settings? It's in the code setting, and then keyboard shortcuts. You can have Command K and Command S. But yeah, you just start in your settings, keyboard shortcuts. If here you just say ES-Lint, you will find this one. It says ES-Lint fix all auto-fixable problems. And you can just assign anything here. You can right click and add anything you want. This is user. I added this like Command M. And whenever I press Command M, is basically fix all my problem automatically. So that's very handy if you don't have that setup. It's really cool. So anyway, so I can go through all of these. As you can see, like some of these has problems, indentations, all that. I press this and press Command M and save them. So it will be fix all of our problems. So yeah, like for example, if you see here, we pass like style light, which is correct, but we have a rule says like a stock prop object. So it just basically says that if you're passing this, it needs to be an object. If you see here, it says style equal light. This is style, is the status bar has a style which is different from the JSX, TSX style. This one is now confusing it for that. It should be something that's like background color transparent or something. That's like a normal style, but in our case, this is the valid prop. If we go to the status and all the status bar props, you can see there is a style, and the style type is one of these: light, dark, inverted, auto. So we are not doing anything wrong. This is something that happens in this API, has a different style types basically. So what you can do, this is like something not happen usually, but you can just go to the quick fix and say disable it for this line. That's it, like a quick fix, and disable this for this line, which is trying to do this, but actually should be like that. And it just disable that rule for this line, and just the red indication of that, it goes away. Get rid of this, yeah. So now everything's happy on the home. The different files, like we bring them. So some of these, for example, if you see it says too long, you can just break this in 2 different lines. It doesn't let me, it needs to be broken in. We might have these in line, and also it's not happy here with the color FF. It says color literal. So if you want like to know what this means, you can just simply search this, what this means. If I search it, for example, here, yeah, so there is like a definition. The point UI is we often find ourselves reusing the same colors in multiple places, so it just doesn't want us to do this. So we can use what we have, colors, text color, and this will go away. So it just basically doesn't want you to use the same thing over and over, as you might need to change it. And also like for the type of navigation, I just put any, but like what we actually need, if we go here, we need param lists. So basically I can just say this, param list base. So that's what we actually need. Also, let me see, like on my colors is okay. This is also okay. And also if you don't have a export default, every component, every file needs an export default, and it warns you. If you go here, it says you don't have a default export, and say export default, and then you can just export default like this. So now it's happy with what we're doing. What else do we have in our components? We can again fix these. Okay, we can just go through other files if there is some issues there as well to fix it. But for now, it should be fine. That's something I wanted to add, is now from now on, our styling is going to be this standard, and you have the same standard as well if you set up same as what I did. Okay, another part that we left last time. We have created this login and sign up screen, but what I forgot to do, and we're going to do it in this session, if you run it on your actual device, whenever you want to type something here, there is a keyboard basically pop up, like a pop-up keyboards comes up and you can just type on it on Android and iOS. You can simulate that if you go to iOS on your simulator. If on the device it naturally happens, it automatically happens. But if on the simulator, you can go to the keyboard and then toggle software keyboard. As you can see, this keyboard. This basically now hides everything we have underneath, so you can't see anything. So the way that it usually works is that this component basically pushes any component that you want up so that you can see all the inputs when you're typing. So in this case, this will not going to work. How we are going to fix this, if I'm going to the login screen. So on the login screen, you need to do, this is our login screen. We need to wrap everything here, all these image and everything that we want to move up when the keyword comes in, which is from here, inputs wrapper, all these components here. We can just wrap it under keyboard avoiding view. Yep. And that is basically coming from the React Native itself. It's an API on the React Native. And we wrap everything. It needs to have children. And that you wrap it around everything here. So this line basically is saying that it's too long. Just break it down into 2 lines. Yeah, so if you wrap everything around this, what you need to do, first of all, this needs a styling. So the style for this would be, what we can do is just like keyboard wrapper. So we can call it like a styles. Keyboard wrapper. And we just add this to the styles. What we need is like a height of 100%. We want to say get all this 100% of the whole screen. So it's height 100%. And then instead of having this justified flex end, we put it like here, because now this is wrapping around everything we have. So yeah, now if I don't have this, for example, it's like everything's up, and then this one actually put it bottom of the screen. So it's like the end of this flex, which is like the whole screen at the moment. Here is again saying just you need to use something that it's going to be repeated. Yeah, everything is around this keyboard at the moment. But it's still not working. Why is not working? Because this has another prop basically, which is just, it tells the component how to behave. What do you want it to do? Like, how do you want it to push everything is there? So like for Android and iOS, it's a little bit different, works perfectly. So you have this behavior. Then the behavior, like what we want is if the platform also is an API from React Native. If you see, it's coming from this React Native. You say if the platform OS is equal to iOS. So it can be iOS or Android. If you see here, Android, web, Windows, you can just customize the experience for everything. And you say if it's iOS, use the padding. And if it's Android, use the height, which is another things in the behavior. So if you just get rid of this, has height, padding, position. So we are using, if it's iOS, we are using padding because that's like how it works. And if it's Android, then it's height. Okay, if I save this, it just pushed everything up there. So if I'm going to log in, it just pushed everything up. And if you see, I added this same thing to the sign up screen. So you need to just do this in 2 screens, basically on the login screen and sign up screen, the exact same thing. You need this keyboard avoiding view and you select which kind of behavior and whatever is this styling for this, which was 100%, flex end. You don't need this. Justify content, flex end. So yeah, so every time the keyboard comes in, it pushes everything up so you can have this really smooth experience, as it's not going to be hide behind your keyboard. Test. Yeah, just like to test and see how that works basically. Yeah, that's it. So just put my password here and log in. Okay, for this episode, these are the things that necessary we wanted to do to make our first styling of our code, and also recognizing if there is any error in our code in terms of ES-Lint and TypeScript. So install the ES-Lint and also here to just format our code to make it nicer each time. We don't need to just push these manually and make it looks nice. You just can press Command M or whatever shortcut keyboards that you just assign and let it automatically style for you. So that's absolutely handy when we are working on bigger files and we want to just like quickly make everything nicer. And also, if you're working with other people and you want to have same standards, coding, styling standards with everyone else, this ES-Lint file that we define here would be something that you can have it like as a package that all your organization or your development team, everyone's use the same thing. You make sure the code looks the same, whoever works on it, and it's absolutely handy. And also we went through and added this necessary for UX, definitely when you want to enter the email password or just any sort of form, this sort of push in keyboard avoid view API, which is basically pushes everything up when the keyboard shows up. So you can use this in any sort of experience that you have inputs and the keyboard pops in. You don't want your stuff hide behind the keyboard, so you push everything up in this animated way, which is, I think, like absolutely nice on both screens. Yeah, that's it for this episode. And the next episode, we are going to create I'm going to create the onboarding, which is kind of interesting. It's basically a screen that between when you sign up and before you get to the app, it's the first time the user is getting to the app, is the first time they are signing up. We are showing them some sort of questions that we know who the user is, what the name is, what the age is. We can ask for the gender, and also we can customize a couple of questions that basically we know who our user is, so we can customize the app more further down when they get into the landing screen. Thanks for watching this episode. Again, as always, please subscribe and like the video if it was useful for you. And hit the bell button. I'm going to upload the rest of these videos, and stay tuned.